great band is superior to a great DJ, but a mediocre band is far inferior to a mediocre DJ.
Well, we don't know how to intro these, so welcome back to another episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast, sponsored by Peace Tea, but not really. I'm just drinking it right now.
I want to challenge ourselves on how quickly we can get a sponsor for this podcast, or maybe no sponsors are willing to sponsor
Probably no
us.
sponsors.
Only if Nick doesn't get us canceled, honestly.
So true. But so today we're going to be talking about DJs and bands and our opinions on which we think is better, which is worse, and a couple horror stories, some good stories. So to kick it off, let's just talk about the initial debate, DJ or band, which is better for your wedding. I don't necessarily think one is like better for your wedding. It's really just going to depend on the vibe. But as a vendor,
disclaimer is you can pick whatever one you want. Any of our opinions that we share on any of our podcast episodes are not final. You can take it with a grain of salt.
And I have two opinions.
Hear what we have to say.
Because my first one, I'll say from a vendor perspective, like an actual wedding videographer, I prefer DJs because from our point of view, we as videographers specifically need to work closely with the band or the DJ to capture the audio, because in our style of filmmaking, we really rely on the audio. It's very narrative driven. So working with just a single person of the DJ to connect all the things we need to connect rather than like an 8-person band is just going to be logistically a lot easier to deal with a single person. But then as just a random person, a non-wedding vendor, I prefer listening to a live band. I just think if a live band is good, if they're very talented, it sounds amazing. So yeah, I think from a guest perspective, bands are great. But yeah, from a vendor perspective, DJs are just easier to work with, though we have had good and bad experiences with both. So we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah. Tell me if you think this is an accurate statement. A great band is superior to a great DJ, but a mediocre band is far inferior to a mediocre DJ. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Like for the live band to be I guess superior to the DJ, they have to be good. If they're just so, then no, DJ is going to be better for sure.
I think my DJ band opinion I've been formulating it over our past few years of working in the wedding industry, and I think I have a very solid take on it now. And as a man who is planning his own wedding soon, I am team DJ, and here's why. Literally no hate to bands because we have filmed and captured events with incredible bands.
Yep.
I've had more good experiences with DJs. So I guess vendor perspective first, Nick touched on it, but working with a DJ specifically for us, we rely heavily on capturing clean and crisp audio of the day, specifically during the ceremony and speeches. And one of the main sources we get that from is the DJ's sound system. So if you're working with one point person, it's a little bit less complicated to just ask them where to plug in and it works out. When you're working with a band, a lot of them, they also just have so much to set up. So they basically don't even give you the time to show you where to plug in. They're kind of just we're busy right now. True. We need to do our own thing. So yeah, that aspect of the vendor side of things, in those instances, we prefer DJs. A lot of the times too, bands will, I don't know if this is super accurate, but I believe the cleanest source of audio is from the DJ board.
The board.
And
Yeah.
I can't remember a time where a band has let us plug into some form of mixing board. Just because honestly, I don't think any of those slots are available with all of their instruments and multiple speakers and microphones and things like that. So usually we end up just plugging into the speaker, which is also a solid source of audio, but it's not as good as the board where you can get like a super clean feed. So usually the DJ has another spot for those to go. Most of my reasoning for being team DJ actually comes from the guest perspective, which is a little interesting because I know you prefer the live band performance. And in some cases I do too. If, like I said, if it's a great band, it's better than a great DJ. But it's a little bit more rare to find those great bands. Reason number one, bands have a very specific set list and they don't veer too far from that. So you have to be in love with all of the songs that they perform on a regular basis. In a way, it's almost kind of like we're almost kind of being hypocritical here because, you know, one of the questions we always ask couples is like, do you connect with our style? And if they don't connect with our style, then they shouldn't be booking us. So with a band, you really do have to connect with their style. Whereas with a DJ, you can they're a little bit more flexible. They can play pretty much anything you want. You know, some
More
of
or
them
less,
have
yeah.
kind of like a style of music that they're inclined to do. Like we've worked with DJs where their style is they like to play a lot of EDM music. They are almost a like an artist DJ in a way, like a David Guetta type person in a way. So in that sense, like if you connect with that sort of style, you'd be booking that DJ for a reason. But a lot of
and
wedding
theirs would
DJs
turn into like a rave, pretty much, which
Yeah.
very on brand for them.
Yeah. So DJs are a little bit more flexible in that regard. You can request songs. They can switch up the vibe if they notice the dance floor isn't as lively as they want it to be. Whereas the band, you're kind of just stuck with what they're playing. The other major thing from the guest perspective of why I personally prefer a DJ is bands, they're human beings. They need breaks. And as performers, like breaks kind of have to be relatively frequent. You know, if they're singing and stuff, like they can't be singing for an entire 4-hour reception. It's just not going to happen. So like every half an hour or so, they might need to take a breather. And I mean, we haven't personally had any experiences with this, but I've heard some bands don't even have like background cover music. So when they take a
Right.
break, it's dead silent.
Dead silent.
Yeah. And I hope that's not like super common, but I have heard of that from other kind of like wedding markets around the country where that's what happens. And if you are going to hire a band, you should hire one that has that background cover music. They're almost kind of like a band DJ blend. The good ones we've worked with can kind of like do both jobs like simultaneously. And that usually works really well. So a DJ can kind of like set background music for, especially like during dinner time. He can set background music, go get his vendor meal and basically just chill out. And there's no break essentially in the reception. And if they do need to step away during a couple songs during like the dancing, usually they're at the table the whole time, but if they do need to take a step aside, they can, because they've kind of like built their set list and they don't need to be at the table the whole time. A lot of the really good DJs are kind of, they almost make it a performance in a way, but that's pro number 2, I guess, for DJs. The other thing too is the money side of it. Bands, significantly more expensive. I think pretty much in all cases, across all tiers. Like great band, significantly more expensive than great DJ. There's just more bodies to pay. More. Sure. Yeah, there's more humans in the band that need a paycheck. So they are instantly just going to be more expensive. And a lot of the times they have more equipment costs and travel costs and things like that. So I think in most cases they're more expensive. If you are connected to the kind of like style that a band brings, just keep that in mind, budget for it in your wedding. But yeah, most of the time they are more expensive, from what I've seen. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like basically why I feel like I'm leaning towards a DJ for my own wedding, and why I think they are kind of the in terms of music, kind of my preferred choice. Let's kind of talk about our experiences working with both vendors, because
Yeah, let's get
we have some
into
good,
the
we have some bad.
stories. The reason you are all here, the good stuff.
Oh yeah, the juicy stuff. Give me
So,
an experience with a band, good or bad. Just rehash it a little bit.
oh, with a band.
Yeah. Go band first, and then we'll talk about DJs as well.
Okay. Band. So I guess one of the more recent bands we worked with, it was like an 8-person band. They were probably one of the better ones that we've had. They had like a person within the band for us to communicate with, so we didn't have to like try and talk to all of them. It was pretty much working with a DJ in the sense of like it was a single person one-on-one communication with the one dude helping us set up where we needed to. So they had their own speaker set up for the ceremony. They had their stuff in the reception area, and they had very easily laid out where we can plug in. So super easy, super simple. And then as a band, like I said, 8-person band, they were actually good. So that was really helpful as well. Like the music they were playing and talent-wise, they were great. So that was the most recent one, I think, and that was one of the more positive ones for sure.
Yeah, one of the not so great band experiences we had actually doesn't have too much to do with audio.
Has nothing to do with audio.
And yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with audio, because and actually, like, I remember the performance of this particular band being like pretty good, and the vibe of the party being great as well. It was the food.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. We're shooting this wedding. It was a pretty long day at this point, and I think our vendor meals were kind of coming like later in the timeline. And I don't remember why we weren't eating at the same time as the rest of the vendors.
No, I remember.
But it was like buffets. Wait, why was it?
It was a combination. It wasn't necessarily the band's fault. It was also poor vendor or venue coordination. So the vendor meals were happening in a separate area in like the downstairs of this place where we had no idea. They never told us where to go. So we were just chilling in this like open kind of lounge area, just waiting for the coordinator to tell us where the food was. Cause she's like, yeah, the food's going to be out in a few minutes. And she saw us sitting there and never told us like it's going to be downstairs. So she just walked away, and we're like, okay, great. So we just waited there. 10 minutes go by, like 15 minutes go by. We're like, where's the food? So then we just start wandering, and we make our way downstairs just randomly. And then we realize, oh, the food's down here. And, you know, the band, as we said, there's multiple people, lots of humans to feed. They were already down there. I think the
coordinator had come up to us again and was like, oh, by the way, there's a buffet downstairs. And I think that's how we like stumbled upon it.
Right.
We're like, oh, okay, buffet, fine. Like, why didn't you tell us before?
Yeah. So yeah, we got down there, and the whole band was just, you know, chowing down on all the food. And there was 3 of us on this day. We had a 3rd person with us, and they left us like a single piece of ravioli. And
the single ravioli has scarred me to this day. That is what I remember the most.
Like one
and some
piece
green
of
bean
pasta.
Green bean casserole.
Green beans and like maybe like 7 potato wedges, something like that.
Yeah. No form of like real sustenance, like no proteins or anything like that.
Yeah. So this was, I'm not going to blame anyone specifically, because like, is it in our contract to feed us? Yes. Should we have probably said something? Yeah. Did we? no, because we were also just lazy and like the night was almost over. We just wanted to get out of there. I remember for me specifically this weekend, this was the third one of a triple header for me.
It was a triple header. That was rough. Yeah.
So I was just like, I just wanted to get out of there. I didn't care. But yeah, we probably should have set them into the venue. But obviously, yeah, the the band, being so many of them, just ate everything. And that's not uncommon.
Yeah. It is. I hear so many people talking about like, oh, the band took our food. The band took our food. And it's like, yeah, we probably should have taken charge of the situation and gotten food and maybe like made a stink out of it. And like, hey, could you guys get us some more stuff from the back? Like, whatever. But it's just something to think about. Again, it goes back to like, if you're somebody who's going to book a band, like you need to feed all of your vendors. And there's a lot of humans in a band, more than a DJ team.
Right.
So that's something to consider as well. But I think maybe we'll save that for another episode. There's actually a lot of controversy around vendor meals specifically. But
yeah, we can
basically
dive
the
into
thing
that
to know
at a
is
different
that
time.
yeah, we'll dive into it another time, but we require it in our contracts, and basically every other vendor does as well. So yeah, that's what happens there. But
all right, DJs.
Those are the two kind of like main band experiences I can remember. We've had a lot of great experiences with DJs. Yeah, we've had a lot of great experiences with DJs, a lot of not so great experiences with DJs. I think the most recent one that comes to mind is you can use the term DJ.
This year has been rough
as a
for DJs for us.
Yeah. Yeah, to say the least. The most recent one I can think of is we had an experience where we'll call him a quote DJ. It was not his profession by like it was not his main gig. It was not like any of his gigs until this particular wedding.
He was a real estate agent. Call it how it is.
Yeah,
he was a friend,
like family friend,
a guest real estate agent. I'm like, bruh, are you kidding me? A freaking real estate agent.
He had bought all of his DJ equipment for this specific wedding.
This event. Yeah, like,
and I can only imagine he had never touched it or tested it prior to that.
No, 100% no.
So this guy's being thrown into a luxury wedding or semi-luxury wedding.
We were at a very nice venue.
And he's never done this job before. So
it was horrible.
We had this first experience where we go to plug in and, he's a little reluctant to it because he's new to this stuff. He doesn't really know how this works, but we go to plug in and we explain the whole process to him. And actually something to keep in mind is the gear that we pick to record our audio from DJ boards, speakers, all that sort of stuff. We select that because we're not transmitting any wireless signals. I think we used to use some like wireless microphones in the past as backups. And I don't want to say they interfered, but they may have on certain cases. So we strayed away from all that process. But we connected the thing to the speaker for the ceremony, and the actual microphone for the officiant, the kind of like microphone stand, was a decent distance away from the actual where the DJ was set up and where the speakers were. Side note, these speakers were probably set up way too far away from the ceremony site. So you could like, if you were a guest sitting at the ceremony, you could like barely.
You couldn't hear shit.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't hear anything.
There was some wireless interference because it wasn't nearby. I don't know the range on this guy's audio setup, but yeah.
There was, yeah. The ceremony was definitely rough. It was cutting in and out. And like you said, all of our audio equipment doesn't transmit anything, but it was actually you who thought about it. So we wear these headsets now. And those were the only things that might have transmitted a wireless signal. So we did test because you were like, maybe
We
it's
did
these.
test.
And we turned them off. And the audio from the ceremony still sucked. So we're like, nope, it's not us. Turn it back on.
Yeah. And those headsets are also designed specifically too, so that it's not on the same frequency as some of the other wireless mics. And I think you might be able to like fine tune frequencies and stuff like that, so you're not interfering. But yeah, like they're made for if you're actually, because if you're wearing
I mean,
those
yeah, they're
headsets
made
and
for
you're using wireless
productions.
mics on a production, yeah. So we're like, okay, we tried. We're like, is this us? No, it wasn't. It just
This
had
guy
to
just
do with the
sucks.
fact that he didn't know how his equipment worked.
Yeah. And then flowing into the reception, oh gosh, there was just the one moment of it was Nicki Minaj's super bass playing, and like everyone
Oh my
was so
gosh.
hype on the dance floor. And then it was like building up right before the beat dropped. And everyone thought he was doing the thing where like, oh, you cut the music so like you can hear people singing it, and then when the beat drops, he'll turn the music back on. So everyone was like, the music cut for like 2 seconds. Everyone started saying the lyrics.
They're all singing it.
And then the beat didn't drop because the music didn't come back on because they realized, oh, this wasn't intentional. His speakers just broke.
They blew out.
I'm like, what is going on? So it was probably dead quiet for a few minutes. Like it took him multiple minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes to get it back up and running. And that was just a disaster.
Other thing that kind of happened at this event. So this DJ, he's kind of like a one-man team, but he has to kind of like guide the, I guess, flow of events, especially for the reception. A lot of that kind of falls on the DJ slash MC. And you know, when you don't have a lot of experience trying to speak in front of a crowd and, you know, get people hyped and guide the events, it gets a little tough. So,
yeah,
you know, he wasn't prepared for that. He was he misannounced certain things, you know, when they weren't supposed to happen, and also was just relatively awkward on the mic. So, you know, I don't want to like bash this guy too much because like he was probably doing a favor for, you know, the family, being a family friend. He stepped up to the plate and did his best. And I think once he basically played a set that they had requested. So I think when all was said and done, it wasn't too bad. But when you have experiences like that as a vendor,
fine.
like when they get frustrated at us because they think we're doing something that's messing with their equipment, that's when it gets frustrating for us as vendors. Cause like we try to be collaborative as much as we can. We always want to work well with every single other vendor on site, and we're always doing our best to problem solve things. You know, we're shutting off our headsets for a second. We might unplug and replug our audio recorder for a second, just to troubleshoot and show them that we're being collaborative. But that's when it gets, you know, hairy for us. I thought of another thing about DJs that kind of like makes or breaks a good DJ from a bad DJ. And it is the whole kind of MC aspect to it. There are times where the DJ tries to do too much. They try to be like a Ryan Seacrest, like host of the night. They might get on the mic during the songs and go, yeah, like all those sort of things, like, come on. And all of that is just a little too much for me. So
I agree.
I mean,
I don't like that.
I think a good DJ knows when to shut up and play the music. But also there's a time and a place for the DJ to kind of hype up the crowd. I think when they're doing the entrances, a good DJ / MC will basically be hyped during that portion of the day, you know, insert themselves a little bit so that they're kind of bringing the crowd to life, but then they take a step back and let the music tell the story at that portion of the night. We have had a couple experiences this year where the DJ was way too involved with the flow of events and just essentially made it awkward, you know?
Wait, which one are you
Right?
talking about?
We there's a few of them. Some of them
I'm
that are a
trying to
little too
remember.
fresh. We don't really want to talk about as much.
Well, I
But
do want to talk about them, but we can't.
we will
Next
save that
year.
for another
Next
time.
year.
uh, but yeah, basically, it boils down to an MC inserting themselves too much into the event and making it awkward for pretty much everybody involved. So if you're a DJ listening and you're thinking about, should I be talking on the mic? No, you should not. So do it for the entrances. Get the crowd hyped. If the couple asks you to do that, then sure. If that's part of your brand, then I guess, yeah, do it. But I would say the vast majority of couples just want to party to the music. They don't really want to hear your voice too much. Sounds so mean, but like, it's just the truth. It's just the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
I'm trying to think of any other kind of like DJ horror stories we've had. I think a lot of it comes from kind of that first initial meeting with them. Like you can tell the vibe of the person when we go up to plug in audio. Like we explain to them very clearly, like, hey, we need this for the bride and groom's film. We need it for their story. It's very important to us, and we'll work around your stuff. Like if you need us to plug into the speaker, that's fine. If you have a feed on your board, that's great. And if they don't respond well to that, we know it might be a long night. So it's happened a few times, but we've also
Yeah.
had some very great and very collaborative DJs. And I feel like the very collaborative ones, we always end up getting a better audio feed out of it after the fact. Don't you think?
I mean, yeah, probably. I'm just thinking of those one where so we have backups on backups when it comes to audio. And
Backups
so we
on
have this
backups.
little it's like a microphone sleeve, super small little fabric thing that you just slide the handheld microphone into. And
Mhm.
a lot of DJs and bands don't love that for some reason. There's literally like the only reason they sometimes say is like, oh, it's like blocks the button, stuff like that. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
it's fine. So like when they give us a hard time about that, that's a little annoying because it's a backup for us because inevitably their system is going to fail us. Like 99% of the time, their system will cut in and out at least a couple times. So
Yeah.
in case when it cuts out at like an important part, we need to have a backup. So having that on the handheld microphone right up at the altar is really important for us. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's many times where like we'll explain it's really nothing, it just slides right on and they give us a hard time. That's a little annoying for me. Like when they don't let us do that right away. Like they should just be like, yeah, totally. And that happens sometimes. That's great. They're like, dude, do what you need to do. And I'm like, thanks.
Yeah.
That's how it should
It's
be.
like if you say that to us, it's like we know we're gonna have a good night.
Yeah.
We did used to use tape, and we have since we're like, you know what? We realize like all of our a lot of like negative experiences we've had with DJs and bands is when we've like taped
Okay,
little
well, to be fair,
microphones to the microphone.
I never liked doing the tape.
Yeah. Once we found that like sleeve solution, absolute game changer. So it definitely has like helped out with the workflow, and we're not putting tape on their equipment, even though it comes off nice and easily. It's a little bit better optically. There was there was a specific experience where we were going to slide on that. We were going to use kind of that like extra backup microphone for the, I guess, mic stand at the ceremony altar. And
Oh shit!
we had
Then
plugged in the
dude, like,
system.
ripped it
We
off.
explained to the DJ. I don't know if he did. We might be thinking about different things. The one I'm thinking
Oh.
of specifically is this guy told us, I don't know why you need that. You know, my system
Oh,
is
okay.
going to work.
Okay, yeah.
He told us that. He said to us, like, you don't need a backup. And, you know, you should be glad that like he's allowing us to plug into his system in the first place.
That's
Sure
just
enough.
arrogant.
Yeah. Sure enough, that audio from the speaker was cutting in and out. So we had our backups. We attached our backup to the ceremony altar microphone. We had the bride and groom mic'd as well, and we got our stuff. But there's just situations like that where you know, like you can't always trust a single source, and when they kind of like don't work in a collaborative way with you, it kind of like leaves a sour taste in our mouth. What was the
No,
thing
yeah.
you were referring to?
Like I
I'm
said, like
curious.
I'll say that in a sec, but like like I said, every DJ, every board, it's going to fail. And yeah, it might have been the same one, but when he was very reluctant to have us put it on the sleeve. I forget if it was one of the beach ones. I forget if we actually ended up getting it on or if they were just like, no. And then I remember during the ceremony, the audio was cutting out. And I just turned and looked at this dude from across the ceremony and just gave him like a death stare. And I'm like, see, this is why.
See, I think that was the same one, but
But
yeah,
yeah, the
no.
one I was talking about, not DJ, but like the officiant, I guess. Top of the mountain, we had
Oh.
the mic sleeve on, and this officiant dude just started ripping the handheld off and just strolling back and forth, and our mic sleeve like fell off, and he just like left it, didn't try to put it back on. So we're like,
Oh
we
yeah.
lost that backup for like a few minutes. We did manage to get it back on, but
No, we
yeah,
pulled we pulled one of the most slick moves
it
in
was a
history
smooth
because we had our
move. It
headsets
was a
on.
smooth move.
Nick's up there with his gimbal, and I see the thing on the floor because it like kind of went over to where I was, and and he's like, do you see it? Do you see it? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And I grabbed it. He stuck his hand. He's filming with one hand, sticks his other hand behind him, grabs it, and then like after he's done filming, he like very quickly puts the backup back on the
This is
microphone.
all
And
like right before the bride is about to walk down the aisle. Like I
yeah,
was debating in
it
my
was
head if I
insane.
even wanted to try because like I knew she was about to round the corner. I was like, do we even have time for this? But then we did all that in a span of like 5 seconds, and then we still got her walking down. We're like, ah, phew, got it. But yeah,
That was more of an officiant thing than anything else, which
that was
gives me an
definitely an
idea
efficient
for another
thing. But
episode. We
just like
should we should
just
totally
backup
talk
audio
about
stuff.
officiants.
Yeah,
Yeah. What makes a good, what makes a bad officiant, etiquette, that sort of thing. We'll talk about that at a later date because we've also had experiences with that as well. Um,
but DJ
yeah,
bands, I think I don't know. That's more or less everything. I
yeah.
forget what
I
else we were
think
gonna say.
to summarize, kind of like for brides and grooms, weigh all those pros and cons before you book either. Think about all the different options that can go about. Like, don't just book a DJ because that's my personal preference, but it, like, if you connect with a band and you're okay spending a little bit more and you're able to work around those other things and you connect with the specific band that you reach out to, and they're able to accommodate your requests, like, then ultimately that's like the best decision for you. You really need to kind of like weigh the pros and cons between yourselves. I mean, our
Yeah.
opinions are always to help. We always offer that because a lot of people, are struggling. They struggle to make decisions in the wedding planning process, and we offer our opinion when needed. If you are a DJ band, please also don't get offended by what we're saying here. We're just kind of like talking about our experiences. I mean, you probably will get offended either way if you don't like what we say, so whatever. But if you are a DJ band member, the biggest thing, our request to you is just work with us.
Work with
We are
us.
on the
Yeah.
same team. We both have the same goal. We both want the wedding to go well, the bride and groom to have a good experience, the guests to have a good experience. So we will work with you. And all of our great experiences with DJs bands have come from those who have been collaborative. And it just, when you're collaborative as DJ band or literally any other vendor, like, the day just goes so much better. So I think the
Yeah.
vendor
Just
table says, don't be a garbage person. That is like my favorite
I was
saying.
literally about to say don't piss us off, but same thing.
Yeah, just be nice. It costs $0 to be kind. If there's a conflict at some point, communicate with us, but do it in a constructive way. Like, if you don't want us to plug into a certain port for some reason, voice that, and we will work with you. So yeah, just something to keep in mind there. That's our kind of like rant for bands, DJs. Which should you go with? Which is best for you? But if you enjoyed this, leave a 5-star review on Spotify, leave a like on YouTube, whatever you got to do. Follow us on Instagram at SeaMount Weddings. If you're a bride or
all the
groom
platforms.
looking to book your 2025 wedding, you can visit SeaMountWeddings.com. Learn about all that we have to offer. Again, follow us on all socials. Everything that we need to link will be linked in the show notes below. But that pretty much wraps it up. And
See you in the next one.
next time.